This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate the 38th National Games in Dehradun in Uttar Pradesh with a focus on sustainability. The theme this year is Green Games. India lodges strong protest after 5 Indian fishermen injured in firing incident by the Sri Lankan Navy. New Delhi emphasizes the need to treat issues in a humane and humanitarian manner. Tech shares tumble across the United States and Europe as China's low-cost DeepSeek sparks worries about the artificial intelligence race. Trump says the app is a wake-up call for the US industry. An incident of firing by the Sri Lankan Navy during the apprehension of 13 Indian fishermen in the proximity of Delft Island was reported in the early hours of this morning. Out of the 13 fishermen who were on board the fishing vessel, 2 have sustained serious injuries and are currently receiving treatment at the Jaffna Teaching Hospital. 3 other fishermen received minor injuries and have been treated for the same. Indian consulate officials in Jaffna have visited the injured fishermen at the hospital to seek their welfare and are extending all possible assistance to the fishermen and their families. The Sri Lankan Acting High Commissioner in New Delhi was called in the morning to the Ministry of External Affairs and a strong protest was lodged over the incident. Indian High Commission, meanwhile, in Colombo has also raised the matter with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Sri Lankan government. Government of India has always emphasized the need to treat issues pertaining to the fishermen in a humane and humanitarian manner, keeping in mind the livelihood concerns. The use of force is not acceptable under any circumstances whatsoever. Existing understandings between the two governments in this regard must be strictly observed. DD India's Jessica Taneja is tracking this story and joining us live from our newsroom. Jessica, first up, just update us with the incident, what really happened and what more details do we have? 5 injured, is the number likely to go up?
We're still getting reports and it's too early to say as to what the situation on the ground is, but if you look at the readout of the Ministry of External Affairs, it says that fishermen have sustained injuries, 5 as you pointed out. There were total 13 fishermen, out of which 7 were from Tamil Nadu and the rest from Puducherry, and the respective governments of the regions have also raised those concerns, saying that the issue persists. It has been prevalent for a long time now, but this time firing at the fishermen and injuring the Indian fishermen has certainly come with a massive protest from the Indian side, where the High Commissioner was summoned, as well as the Indian High Commission in Colombo is also raising it with the relevant authorities. And as you pointed out, the few fishermen that have been injured, authorities have visited them in Jaffna and they are being taken care of. But this issue, Sakal, is a perennial one when it comes to illegal fishing, and also the understanding of what the international maritime boundary line and the contentious division, especially when we talk about the region of Park Strait, which is where we believe this incident also took place.
Yes, having said that, as you rightly pointed out, Jessica, this is not an isolated incident, something like this. But Indian government's position on this is very clear, that it is deeply concerned as far as the major concerns and the safety and the livelihood of these fishermen are concerned. Anything you're picking up on those lines, how Government of India is going to take this up further?
Well, the Government of India, through the Ministry of External Affairs, has taken the action, and as pointed out in the readout earlier, we will now know how it progresses further. This is where the government has taken a strong protest against the actions of the Sri Lankan Navy. Now, there have been, in principle, understanding between the Indian side and the Sri Lankan side, especially when it comes to mechanized trawling and fishing in those areas. These are the kind of issues that have been discussed by both sides whenever there is either a state visit to the respective countries or a meeting on the sidelines of the bilateral summit. This issue has consistently been raised and resolutions have tried to be found from both ends, but firing at the fishermen is certainly not a new issue, but we haven't seen this kind of action against the Indian fishermen in the recent times, and this does, of course, incur some criticism as well, to the extent that there are various diplomatic channels available to discuss issues. And the incident of firing certainly does not go down well, and we'll have to wait and see on how the government further responds to it. But yes, there would have been an in-principle agreement where a human life is involved here, despite the differences on the international maritime border line, irrespective of that, Sakal.
Right, we'll leave it there. Many thanks, Jessica Taneja. You can keep tracking this story very, very closely for us. Thank you so much for joining us from the newsroom. And India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Shankars, who is on a 3-day visit to UAE, met the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and recalled his recent visit to India. They also discussed further advancement of partnership between the two nations. Earlier in the day, Dr. Shankars addressed the inaugural session of the Raisina Middle East in Abu Dhabi on Tuesday. In his keynote address, the minister highlighted the significant expansion of India-Middle East engagement in the past decade, driven by strong trade connectivity and people-to-people linkages, saying India sees the Middle East as not only a close partner, but a crucial passage to the world and beyond.
This is a region crucial to India's strategic interests. Many of you would be familiar with the intensity of India's ties with the Gulf. Our trade is in the region of about $160 to $180 billion annually. The energy dimension is the most visible one, but there is much more to it than that. Whether it is projects, technology, education, health or services, our presence in the Gulf is both pervasive and crucial.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the 4th edition of the Utkarsh Odisha Make in Odisha Conclave 2025 in Bhubaneswar. Addressing the business summit, Prime Minister Modi said Eastern India is the growth engine of the country and Odisha is an important part of it.
मैं पूर्वी भारत को देश के विकास का ग्रोथ इंजन मानता हूं और ओडिशा की इसमें एक बड़ी भूमिका है। आज इस क्षेत्र में संभावनाओं के इतने द्वार खुल रहे हैं जितने आजादी के बाद पहले कभी नहीं खुले। यही समय है, सही समय है।
Prime Minister Modi also reiterated the importance of indigenous production for the development of the nation.
देश की तेज प्रगति सिर्फ रॉ मटेरियल के एक्सपोर्ट पर संभव नहीं है। इसलिए हम पूरे इकोसिस्टम को बदल रहे हैं, नए विजन के साथ काम कर रहे हैं। ओडिशा में जो रिसोर्सेज हैं, उससे जुड़ी इंडस्ट्रीज भी यहीं लगे। इस दिशा में हमारी सरकार काम कर रही है।
Earlier, Prime Minister Modi also inaugurated the Make in Odisha exhibition, highlighting the state's achievements in having a vibrant industrial ecosystem. The conclave is hosting CEOs and leaders roundtables, electoral sessions, business-to-business meetings and policy discussions, ensuring targeted engagement with investors across the globe. The 2-day business conclave will be concluding on the 29th of January. In other news, well, just a week after taking charge as US President for the second time, Donald Trump signed 4 executive orders on Monday. The executive orders reinstated members of the military who were terminated or forced to separate because of COVID vaccine mandates. Another order is on establishing a process to develop an American Iron Dome, a comprehensive missile defense shield to land the American homeland. The order also relates to eliminating gender radicalism in the military, while the fourth is about eliminating diversity, equity and inclusion of the DEI set aside in DEI offices within the military. In addition, those items Trump signed a proclamation commemorating the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Donald Trump has also signed an executive order to remove transgender ideology from the military in a potentially major setback for the LGBTQ plus rights. Trump, in his order, has claimed that the armed forces have been afflicted with radical gender ideology to appease activists and that many mental and physical conditions are incompatible with active duty, quote unquote. And with around 15,000 transgender troops in the US military, their dismissal would reduce forces. The US military has deployed Marines to the US-Mexico border to reinforce the barrier and curb illegal immigration. The move is part of the Trump administration's efforts to address the issues. The deployment of the Marines to the border has sparked controversy, with some critics arguing that it is a militarization of the border. However, US officials maintain that the move is necessary to ensure national security and enforce immigration laws. During the GOP event on Monday, Donald Trump said that he wanted Congress to pass a bill that includes an increase in funding to secure the country's borders.
In the coming weeks, I'm looking forward to working with Congress on a reconciliation bill that financially takes care of our plans to totally and permanently restore the sovereign borders of the United States once and for all. This should include full funding for a record increase in border security personnel and retention bonuses for ICE and Border Patrol.
While in Mexico, authorities are preparing for potential deportations by setting up temporary shelters, Ciudad Juárez, to assist deported citizens. Nearly 5 million Mexicans are living in the United States without authorization. In news coming in from Congo, clashes have erupted in the Kinshasa city of Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday as police fired tear gas at protesters who attacked diplomatic buildings. Small arms fire and some loud explosions were reported. Congo is dealing with its worst escalation since 2012 after Rwandan-backed M23 rebels marched into the city on Monday. The recent fighting has killed at least 17 and injured 370 others. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced and sought refuge in Goma and in surrounding camps. A UN official confirmed that many dead bodies are being seen scattered in the streets and casualties have filled the hospitals in the city.
The humanitarian situation in and around Goma remains extremely worrying. And again this morning, our colleagues in the Democratic Republic of the Congo report heavy small arms fire and mortar fire across the city and the presence of many dead bodies in the streets. We have reports of rapes committed by fighters, looting of property, including of a humanitarian warehouse, and humanitarian and health facilities being hit.
Meanwhile, President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, held an inter-institutional government meeting after rebel forces captured the city of Goma. The meeting, attended by the head of the constitutional bodies, discussed ways to restore authority and humanitarian issues in Goma. Speaker of the National Assembly added that Tshisekedi would address the nation without mentioning any further details.
Not a single inch of Congolese territory will be given up to the enemies of the Congolese people. The President of the Republic, Felix Antoine Tshisekedi, remains intransigent in this matter. On January 27, 2025, an inter-institutional meeting was held by the head of state at his office in the African Union city. and was devoted to the situation in the east of the country, while the FARDC foiled the attempt to take the city of Goma by the M23 terrorists supported by the Rwandan army.
Nous avons exploré.
Let's take a look at some other stories making news around the world. We begin with Prince William and his wife Kate of Britain. They met Holocaust survivors at the Guildhall in London on Monday. The meeting was part of the events commemorating International Holocaust Memorial Day and the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz death camp. And Western Australia is investing heavily in large battery projects to tackle the challenge of storing renewable energy for the time of high demand as coal-fired power is phased out. These batteries help store excess energy during the day and release it when demand peaks in the evening. Despite some skepticism, experts believe that these batteries will be crucial for integrating more renewable energy into the state's isolated grid. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Serbian Prime Minister to resign as anti-corruption protests grow. And Russia interested in continuing gas supply to Europe, says Kremlin spokesperson.
What's highest on industry's wish list, if I have to ask you?
So highest in the industry's growth list is to see how we can, on the day the budget gets presented, we are able to say that this is a budget focused on growth. Right. So I would think that the private investments going forward, bolstered, as you said very rightly, that the public capex must continue, private capex will definitely pick up.
You're watching DT India Live. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and now let's move on to some news coming in from Serbia, where Prime Minister Milos Vučević has announced his resignation on Tuesday amid anti-corruption protests spread across the country. Serbia's capital, Belgrade, has seen daily anti-government protests since a roof collapsed in November last year at a railway station in Serbia's second largest city, Novi Sad, killing at least 15 people. Protesters have blamed government corruption as the main cause of the disaster. The Serbian Prime Minister told a press conference that he and the mayor of Novi Sad would step down.
My irrevocable decision is to resign from the position of Prime Minister of the Republic of Serbia. I had a long meeting with the President of the Republic this morning. We talked about everything. We talked about this, and he accepted my decision. He accepted my arguments.
French President Emmanuel Macron met European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Paris on Tuesday. European strategies on artificial intelligence, competitiveness and defence are on the agenda for the discussion. Macron is also set to meet Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen later on Tuesday. Italian naval ship on Tuesday arrived in Albanian port of Shankars with 49 migrants picked up in international waters. This move is part of Italy's wider plan to relocate migrants to its neighbouring country of Albania. After their arrival, the migrants will be identified at a facility there and then moved to a detention centre. Italy's step aims to limit sea arrivals to its territory and also marks the first instance of an EU nation attempting to relocate migrants to a non-EU country. Russia expressed its interest in continuing gas supply to Europe, said a Kremlin spokesperson on Tuesday. This followed the European Commission's statement saying it planned to continue talks with Ukraine on natural gas supplies. After Ukraine denied to renew the transit contract that expired on January 1st, Russian gas supplies through Ukraine have stopped. Slovakia and Hungary have been pushing the European Union to step up and restore the flow of gas through a major pipeline.
Hungary has received some assurances from Brussels that some kind of negotiation process will be restarted. Well, we will keep a close eye on the situation. We are interested in selling our products, especially since they are not only competitive in comparison to American liquefied natural gas, but they can make way more sense commercially for European buyers.
Europe, where despite massive sanctions against Russian energy, the EU continues to import LNG from Moscow and at record highs. 2024 recorded a big increase, up 6 times than the year before. How is this European Union circumventing its own sanctions, and who are the key players? To talk about that, we are joined by DW correspondent Warda Imran in Berlin on this story. Warda, hi. Give us the latest. What do the numbers tell us?
Thanks for having me. The numbers tell a bleak story, and it's a story of continued dependency for energy imports. And it spells out just how many holes there are in these sanctions. The latest data from 2024 show that Russian imports were up 11% from the year before. That's according to think tank Institute of Energy Economics. This is alarming, considering that Europe's largest imports came from the US, and those dipped a bit. And there's another story here, which is the role of German-owned company SEFE. This used to be a subsidiary of Gazprom, the Russian natural gas producer, which is also one of the world's largest LNG suppliers. There are ongoing contracts with Russia, which allow energy imports to flow easily to France, for example. Europe has not imposed a legal obligation to terminate these contracts. And even if SEFE does not take the delivery, it still has to pay for it. This might prompt Russia to take this money and still resell this LNG elsewhere. So the EU takes it. That's what the narrative is, but it's not that simple. In the first 15 days of 2025, the EU imported 837,000 metric tons of LNG from Russia. That's 70,000 tons more than the same period last year. And that's according to commodities intelligence company KPLER.
So will Europe ever be able to reel in its energy dependency?
Well, for now, it seems it's taking its dependency from Russia and turning it into dependency on the US. Now, the EU is under pressure to buy more fossil fuel from the US, and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has shown support for the US alternative. The new US president has been pressuring allies and partners to buy more of US domestic production. And I think this shift to more and more LNG contracts with the US is also a way to appease Donald Trump. Regarding Europe-wide dependency, it's hard to make meaningful assumptions on that because the 27 member countries are not all on the same page. Hungary is still fighting for Russian imports to be part of the energy mix. Meanwhile, other countries like Germany are against it, but in reality, Germany's LNG imports were up 10% last year, and much of that could be coming in from Russia.
Thank you for joining us from Berlin on that story. Now let's move on to some more news and updates. A seismic shift in the world of artificial intelligence is shaking up global tech markets, it seems. The release of DeepSeek, which is a low-cost AI model from China, has taken the industry by storm, sparking a stock market sell-off and leaving US tech giants reeling. But what makes DeepSeek different, and why is it causing such a stir? Let's dive in.
A week after its launch in the United States, DeepSeek's AI-powered chatbot has become the most downloaded free app on Apple Store. Developed by the Hangzhou-based startup, DeepSeek is gaining global attention for its advanced features and affordability. The app's sudden popularity, coupled with its cost efficiency, sent shockwaves through the financial markets. Nvidia, a key supplier of chips powering AI models, saw its stock plummet 17%, wiping out over $590 billion in market value. The Nasdaq Composite fell 3.1%, while the S&P 500 slid 1.5%, reversing last week's record highs. DeepSeek's efficiency comes at a fraction of the cost of US-based AI models. Its R1 model is reportedly 20 to 50 times cheaper than OpenAI's comparable models, which has raised concerns about the competitiveness of US investments in AI, including the recently announced $500 billion Stargate initiative by President Donald Trump. But there are lots of AI models out there from OpenAI, Google, Meta, and others. So, what's the big deal with DeepSeek? DeepSeek is designed to be affordable, transparent, and accessible. Unlike existing models, it allows users to run AI locally on their own devices, bypassing reliance on expensive servers. Its chatbot even articulates its reasoning before providing responses, distinguishing it from competitors like ChatGPT. Despite its rapid success, DeepSeek faces challenges. Social media users have highlighted censorship issues in the chatbot, particularly regarding sensitive topics about China. While this may hinder its global adoption, the Chinese government's support for AI development could fuel further advancements. DeepSeek's rise has already rattled US markets. Analysts warn that low-cost Chinese alternatives could disrupt the AI ecosystem, forcing companies to rethink their strategies. Hardware manufacturers and chip makers essential to AI's supply chain may feel the squeeze as the competitive landscape shifts. As the global AI race heats up, one thing is clear. DeepSeek has set a new benchmark for accessibility and efficiency, challenging the dominance of US tech giants and reshaping the future of artificial intelligence. But whether it can sustain its momentum in the face of political and technological challenges remains to be seen. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, Uttarakhand is all set to host the 38th National Games from January 28 to February 14, and with events spread across 11 cities, the Games promise a spectacular showcase of sports and heritage. Over 10,000 athletes, officials and coaches will compete in about 32 disciplines and 4 demonstration events. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Games at Maharana Pratap Sports College in Dehradun, marking a significant moment for Uttarakhand's emergence as a sporting hub.
Uttarakhand, the land of lofty peaks and serene valleys, is ready to script a new chapter in its journey. Known as the Devbhumi or the land of gods, it now transforms into the land of games. The state is all set to host the 38th National Games from January 28 to February 14. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi will officially declare the Games open at a glittering ceremony at the Maharana Pratap Sports College in Dehradun on Tuesday. This marks a significant milestone for Uttarakhand, showcasing its emergence as a major sports destination. Like its rivers that flow through valleys, carrying life and energy, the National Games will flow across 11 cities.
So National Games, we are looking really forward to, play our maximum, to put maximum effort, because usually it used to happen in 4 years. So I have played in 2015 and I was lucky enough to play in 2022 also. So this is my 3rd National Games. So I'm so happy that I could come here and play for my state.
The ground, the infrastructure is also built up very nicely. And the players are getting more and more chances of playing with international players and showcasing their talents also.
The Games promise a blend of modern and traditional hues. With 32 disciplines and 4 demonstration sports, Kalari Payattu, Yogasana, Malakhamb and rafting. More than 10,000 athletes, officials and coaches from states, union territories and institutional teams will compete for glory.
As Himalayan peaks stand tall, a symbol of strength and aspiration, Uttarakhand is leaving no stone unturned to make the 35th edition of National Games a grand success. With more than 10,000 athletes and officials and also 11 venues, it's going to be a grand spectacle of sports in Uttarakhand. With camera person Manmohan, Narayan Singh, DD India, Dehradun.
Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available in both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.